Because and it wasn't totally their fault because their class got canceled. But it's still a attendance issue since then. It's just like, it's the first 4 weeks of class. Yeah.
I mean, what week are we in right now? 6?
7.
All right. Hello. This is funny. Is this set for you?
Yeah.
That's okay. Hello. How are we all doing?
I'm doing great.
They canceled their class.
Hi. Welcome. God, just this faculty. Hello, friends. Thank you for coming. Welcome to what is actually the penultimate Visiting Writers Series event of the season. It feels like we've been going through a whirlwind of them, but we have like a month and change break before the next one. So thanks for keeping the energy up. I am your host, Dan Rosenberg, and I normally do a little bit of housekeeping up at the top before introducing our reader, and I'm going to keep doing that because it's necessary. So tonight we have Gray Bulla back at his alma mater.
Woo! I know him! My friend. I like him, he's cool.
And his new book, if I can give you that, is here. Officially published a week ago.
Yeah!
And it is, we have a little stack of them over there. They are available for sale. You can buy them through me, cash, cards, Venmo, whatever, and then all that money goes to Gray in one tiny place, and he doesn't have to deal with all of that nonsense. He can be busy writing sweet, personalized messages to you in your books. So that's available. And I know for the past several readings, we've done that thing where we like interrupt the reader with questions and whatnot, but Gray's reading from a sustained work of fiction that makes less sense for that sort of material. So we're gonna reserve Q&A time for the end. So as you're listening, if you feel that you are motivated to ask a question or make a comment or connection, just file it away till the end. There will be time. We will talk and chat and do that thing that we do here, which is, constantly needle each other. It'll be great.
It's gonna be really hard, man.
Try that. Just try to bring it down. So, Gray Bulla is an unusual visiting writer for us in that so many of us already know his work so well since he graduated last year from Wells. Describing this reading earlier, I had several students being like, but everyone knows Gray. His impact on the school is still everywhere. And I just thought that was a lovely thing that I wanted to repeat because it's true, right? And I think about where the Chronicle Lit Mag is now and how what Gray did to bring that back into a functional and interesting and compelling space and making it into a magazine that we would want to read and that we're glad to have continued to survive. It's incredibly valuable. So Gray's contributions here far exceed those of just a writer coming through. And it was funny when Gray was a student here just last year. We were working on the senior thesis together, and those projects are all very individualized, right? They're all dependent on what the student wants to do, but everyone else in the room was sort of imagining a hypothetical potential future for their work. And Gray was just like, I'm under contract for my second book. I need to deliver pages to an editor. And that's what this is going to be. And then the master class today was all about revision, which I particularly liked because I know that all the work on the senior thesis was stepping stones toward a thing that looks nothing like it looked in the senior thesis. And that is the nature of writing sometimes. And I would love to claim some credit for Gray's skills as a writer, but I really can't. He came to us already impressive, having already been named the Nashville Youth Poet Laureate with a book of poems in the works as well. That's not to say I didn't teach Gray anything. He TA'd for me during the pandemic, and he learned many useful things, including that he definitely does not want to teach. So you're welcome. But from the very beginning, beyond the obvious writing talent, what always impressed me about Gray was how he understood writing as a kind of joyful work, a necessary labor. And that work, that labor merited his attention, his time, and care. He wasn't churning out endless first drafts without glancing back. He was considered and meticulous and willing to put in the hours. He revised deeply and thoughtfully, which is why I was so glad he chose revision as the subject for his masterclass earlier today. And he also was so deeply committed to an ethical stance, not just in his life, but in his work. We had some spirited debates about, for example, heterosexual writers writing from the perspective of queer protagonists. And Gray's position was never the familiar black and white idealism of a young person newly confronted with an ethical quandary. It was always this nuanced thinking from someone who had really interrogated the problem and the various intersecting social and historical and economic forces that might play into that question. And even a thing that came up in the masterclass today when you mentioned, Gray, that one reviewer talked about how concerned your work is with consent. It just rang so true to me that that wasn't even on your radar as an explicit theme in the work. It was just a natural outgrowth of you thinking about what it is to be the humans who you create in the work. And if that strikes a reader as notably and insistently ethical, that's right, right? So all of this is just to say that Gray has a poet's ear, an activist's heart, and a scholar's mind, and it's a rare combination that has served him well so far, and I've no doubt will continue to guide him to greater success in the future. And when that happens, I hope he will come back often to share that with us. But for now, let's enjoy hearing from his first novel together. Gray Bulla, come on up.
Yeah.
I really liked when you had to bend down and Tinsley to be here, but hello. I'm recovering emotionally from that, so give me 1 second. But so I'm going to be reading the first chapter of my book, If I Can Give You That. And if we have time, I'm going to check after the end of the chapter what the time is like. I might read a little bit into the second chapter if you guys are interested. And then we'll have time for some like Q&A and everything. So, 1. You can bail anytime you need to, Nicole reminds me for the 4th time today. I nod. I don't tell her that I really can't. At least, not without feeling bad about it. But I know what she means. She means I can escape to the bathroom, that I can slide out of the space quietly and lock myself in a stall until the meeting is over, or I can leave and catch the bus to downtown and walk back to my apartment. I can even call my mom to pick me up if I really want to. But even if I can do that, I won't. I have no idea how this group will respond to a new guy showing up out of nowhere and then leaving halfway through, and I'm not gonna chance it. But I know my best friend well enough to get that she means well. So I just say, I know. And Nicole smiles as I hold the door open for her. Glenwood's only youth center is small. The building is unimpressive from the outside, tall and gray and easily overlooked. Inside isn't much different, but the owners, the workers, the volunteers, whoever's in charge of decorating, they've clearly tried their best to make it as lively as possible. In the lobby, colorful Afghans are slung over the backs of second-hand couches, and delicate lights are strung over the chipped countertop. Art lines the walls, figures of people dancing, splatter-painted self-portraits, flowers and buildings and things, all with their artists' names and ages displayed under their art. I look at it all while Nicole talks with the woman behind the front desk. The paintings are throughout the lobby, and I follow the artwork until I'm in a hallway. The pieces change to photography, black and white images of teens in various generic poses, arms crossed loosely, sitting on curbs, talking to one another, looking directly at the camera with somber expressions. I guess it makes sense that this is the kind of artwork they display here, especially when the whole point of having the youth center available and free for the public is to actively help at-risk teenagers in the city. Am I an at-risk teenager? I don't know. Maybe. Across from the photographs are 2 doors. From the lobby, I hear Nicole wrapping up her conversation. She finds me, and we head through the doors together. The room is large and mostly empty, save for some round tables and a rolling whiteboard at the front. A few kids are already here, sitting on the floor or standing around. I don't know any of them, but they obviously know Nicole. They're quick to greet her, launching into more pleasantries and conversations while I stand around awkwardly. Everyone looks to be either my age or younger, placing Nicole, at 20, as maybe the oldest person in the room. More kids trickle in from the lobby. Nicole finishes exchanging all her polite "how are yous" and "that's good to hears," and slings an arm around my shoulder, pulling me close to her. "Hey asshole," she says, which is Nicole speak for "come join the conversation." "That's me," I say, which is Gail speak for "please don't make me do that." She snorts and opens her mouth to say something when a boy I recognize from school comes up to us, grabbing Nicole's attention. "Aw, hey," she says brightly. Nicole says most things brightly. "You made it." "Yeah, my mom ended up taking my brother instead, so," the boy says. We're in a class together, but we've never really talked. He's shorter than me, with a bright smile and deep dimples, his blue raglan shirt pushed up to show off warm brown forearms. His dark corkscrew curls are pulled into a short ponytail at the base of his neck. Nicole is telling him something, still with her arms slung over my shoulder. She chokes me a little when she tries to use both hands to talk, but this is par for the course for her. "Oh, and this is Gail," she says, finally letting me go, only to do something worse. Motion broadly toward me in that "here's what I'm presenting for you" gesture, which I didn't realize I hated until this exact moment. "Hey," he extends a hand for me to shake. "I'm Declan." "Gail," I say, taking it, and then, a moment too late, "Nicole already said that." He laughs a little, like he's not completely sure if he should or not. "You go to GHS, right? I'm pretty sure we're in the same AP Lit class." "Oh," I blink. "Yeah, I think we are. How are you feeling about senior year so far?" I shrug. We only started back at school this Wednesday, but I don't say that. "It's all right. You?" From the corner of my eye, I can see Nicole watching this interaction between glances at her phone, a smile forming on her lips. No doubt she's happy that I'm talking to someone new. "Good so far. I'm hopeful about the year." Someone behind us laughs way louder than necessary, and Declan and I both glance at them. More people have arrived since we started talking. A few are sitting down already, some with backpacks next to them, clearly getting here straight from school. He turns back to me. "I guess we should get settled so the group can start, but it was nice talking to you." "You too." Declan heads to the opposite side of the room and sits next to a girl I recognize from my environmental science class. Nicole takes a seat on the floor, and I follow her example, keeping as close to her as I can. "All right, everyone." Nicole claps her hands together. "Circle up, circle up." Slowly, the chatter dies and the group calms. Nicole leans back on her palms, the room's attention on her. "Hello and welcome to our first plus meeting of the school year." She aims her blinding smile around the circle. "Before we get started with group discussion, let's go around and do introductions. Name, pronouns, and for today's icebreaker, something you like to do to relax. I'm Nicole, my pronouns are she, her, and when I want to relax, I go for a long drive with my music playing." A few people in the room express their approval of her answer with polite snaps, and she turns to me expectantly. I'm hit with a wave of nervousness. I run my finger over an eyebrow nervously. "I'm Gail, he, him, I guess to relax. I crochet?" I don't mean to end it uncertainly, but the eyes on me turn my statement into a question. From where I'm sitting, I can see Declan, pressing his shoulder to his friend's. He's looking at me, not weirdly, just in that way that you do when someone in a group has the floor, but it makes me blink and look away from him. Nicole pulls me away from overthinking the moment with a hand on my arm. The next person is already speaking, and she squeezes my arm gently. She doesn't have to say it. I know she's happy I got through introductions okay. It takes a while for everyone to go, but when we've finally gotten back around to Nicole, she announces this meeting's theme, Arts and Expression, which she writes on the whiteboard in large, neat letters. Can y'all think of any LGBTQIA+ artists, writers, musicians, or actors who inspire you? It can be anyone at all. Hands are already up before she's finished asking. As Nicole calls on people, they offer different names. Some I recognize, some I don't, and she writes every answer on the board. Janelle Monáe, Freddie Mercury, Audre Lorde. The list keeps going. Some examples come to mind, and Nicole makes hopeful eye contact with me, but when I don't raise my hand after a few seconds, she moves on to someone else. Once she can't squeeze any more names onto the board, Nicole puts the cap on her marker and turns back to us. Small group time. I want you to get into groups of 4 or 5 and discuss the role of the arts in the LGBTQIA+ community, what it means to you, why these people on the board inspire you, your own experiences with art, anything at all. And while y'all are talking, I want you to make something. She gestures to round tables with buckets of markers, crayons, colored pencils, and other various art supplies. It can be a poem, a picture, a song. I don't care as long as you're creative. In 30 minutes, we'll get back together and share in the large group. She gestures toward the tables in a final go-ahead, and people are already getting up and finding their places, naturally gravitating toward their friends. Nicole watches everyone for a moment, then glances at me, still sitting on the ground. She grins and offers her hand to pull me up. Come on, loser. You can stick with me. I don't say anything, but I know she understands what I mean. Thanks. Nicole chooses a table in the back of the room, with a few containers of Play-Doh, some falling apart boxes of crayons and markers, and white printer paper. Declan is already seated, rummaging around for the right crayon colors. His friend, who introduced herself as Jacqueline when we went around, is shorter than Declan, with box braids pulled into a bun on the top of her head and lots of ear piercings. And the neon pink Play-Doh she's already claimed matches her nails. Nicole plops into the chair across from Jacqueline. I sit next to Nicole. Declan and Jacqueline talk, and Nicole starts on a drawing of her and her girlfriend Michaela, while I go for the blue Play-Doh. I scrape out the last bits from the bottom of the container, then shape it into a cylinder. I pull it apart while half listening to Declan tell a story about his younger brothers. Nicole is drawing 2 miniature lesbian flags for stick figure Nicole and stick figure Michaela to wave around when she says, "So, about the prompt. Gail, you have any thoughts on the whole arts thing?" I press my thumb into the dough until it starts to fold in half from the pressure. Not really. Nothing at all? If it were just Nicole and me, I wouldn't have any issues discussing this. We've talked about trans art and trans artists, all the musicians and actors we look up to. She knows that even though I don't consider myself artistic, I've still thought about this, how it helps, or doesn't help, or could help. But Declan and Jacqueline are here, sitting across from us, looking at me. And I'm not looking up, my eyes still trained on the Play-Doh, but I can feel their stares, and the weight of it makes me press my thumb into the dough harder. And suddenly I can't think of a single thing. So I just say, nothing, and hope she gets what I mean. She doesn't push me after that. She talks about Laura Jane Grace while I just keep pressing into the dough until it's so thin that it's almost falling apart. I don't say really anything at all until we're nearing the end of small group time and Nicole holds up her drawing to show off. Ta-da! It's cute, I say. But what's under Michaela's nose? It's her septum ring. She gestures toward the image with a pink crayon. Oh, clearly. It sort of looks like a giant mole, Declan says. Nicole turns the paper around to take another look. She frowns at the smudge. I think it's still cute, Jacqueline says, and Declan knocks her elbow with his. When he looks up again, our eyes meet. I panic and look away, then worry that looking away so quickly was a weird thing to do. But he doesn't say anything, and a minute later, we're cleaning up our tables and heading back to the large circle, completed projects in hand. He sits in the same spot as earlier, and for the rest of the meeting, I make sure our eyes don't meet again. So that was chapter 1.
Yeah, that was great.
That felt pretty short. What are we like on time?
7:26.
What do you think I should do? You think I'm good? Okay.
Keep going.
I'm gonna read a shorter section from the second chapter. I'm not gonna read the whole thing. So here we go.
Ooh, yeah.
2. When I get home, Mom is asleep on the couch. She's curled up with her laptop still open on the coffee table, displaying a half-finished Word document with lesson plans for her music theory class. The TV is muted and left on the History Channel. Despite the Tennessee August heat, it can get chilly at night, so I get a blanket and lay it over her. After changing into pajamas, I sit on the floor in front of the couch and turn the TV volume up. The documentary plays quietly, the voiceover low and smooth while I run my hands over the carpet and listen to my mom's steady breathing. I don't remember falling asleep or getting up in the night, but I guess I must have, because when Mom wakes me up in the next morning, I'm on the couch. The blanket is now draped over me, and early morning light shines in from the living room window. Mom stands in front of the coffee table with a mug in each hand. Good morning. She holds one out for me and smiles. From here, the light illuminates the countless freckles and moles splattered across her cheeks and forehead, making her look older than her 37 years. Morning. I sit up and take the mug from her. She made me tea, thank God. I've never liked coffee. How was the thing with Nicole yesterday? She asks, sitting down on the couch. What was it again? A club? Kind of. It's like a support group for LGBTQIA+ teens. Mom brings her mug to her lips and blows gently on the coffee, nodding. Was it fun? I guess. I don't know that I'd use the word fun, but I liked watching everyone interact. I've always liked people watching. When I was looking at it from the outside, instead of worrying about coming up with something to say, the group felt, I don't know, comfortable. Like everyone knew each other, and there were no secrets when it came to sexuality and gender, personal information offered between jokes. People laughed a lot, and they got to celebrate their identities, even when the discussion got a little heavier. I don't think I've ever been able to do that. What is it Nicole does there? Mom asks. She's one of the mentors. She led the group discussion. Usually there's another person there too, I think, or maybe they switch off? I don't know. Were there other trans people there, other than you and Nicole? Yeah, I say, but I didn't really talk to them. Mom nods again. We sit together, sipping our drinks in silence. Between several pop-ups alerting me of critically low battery, my phone tells me it's just barely 9 a.m. Mom sets her mug down on the table. Do you have plans for the day? I have a shift at the restaurant at 1. You? One of my students has a recital tonight, she says. Glenwood is only 20 minutes out from Nashville, so even though we don't live there, she works as a piano teacher at an art school there. But other than that, I'm going grocery shopping in a little bit. Want to come? She smiles. I get it. You want to relax before work, it's fine. She stands and makes her way to the bathroom, putting her half-empty mug in the sink on the way. She seems to be doing better this morning. Smiling. Talking. Nothing like she was just a few nights ago. I found her sobbing on the kitchen floor, shakily picking up the ceramic shards of a broken mug she'd accidentally dropped, a cut on her hand leaving a trail of blood on the pieces. If not for the Band-Aid on her palm and the mug's remains in the trash can, I might have thought I dreamt the whole thing. Half an hour later, she leaves for the store. Her pajamas are replaced with blue jeans and a blouse, her light brown hair brushed and braided, the bags under her eyes hidden with concealer. I'll see you later, Gail. She grabs the car keys with steady hands and kisses my forehead on her way out. I'm relieved. I'd started worrying she was caving in on herself again. When I was 6 years old, my parents opened a bakery. I say my parents, but I really mean my father. He bought a small space only a block away from our apartment. Back then, Mom was in college, but most days she still managed to pick me up from kindergarten right after school let out, and from there we'd walk to the bakery, my hand in hers. We'd push open the shop door, and a bell would chime our arrival. I loved the sound of that bell, so dainty and content, like every person that came into the bakery was someone special, something good. That bell was my second favorite part of the bakery. My first was when my dad would greet us, standing at the entrance to the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish rag and smiling. Lucas Bailey had a way of smiling with his whole face, first at the corners of his lips, then stretching across his cheeks, dimples, the crinkle at the corners of his eyes, the scrunch in his nose. If he were faking it, I'd know. It wouldn't reach past his dimples, but he never faked it. He loved us. I wouldn't waste time. I'd sprint as fast as my legs could take me and jump into his arms, shrieking with laughter, my backpack bouncing with me. Hey, kiddo. He always caught me. He'd pick me up and throw me into the air. My father was strong. My father was a giant. Did you miss me? And he'd always tickle me right there under my ribs. My mom would watch this exchange, smiling softer than my dad, but just as warm. My parents were as warm as they came, but never in the same ways. Mom was quieter, almost timid, like she wasn't used to loving us yet. I wouldn't understand why until much, much later. Did you forget about me? Mom would say to him once I'd stopped laughing, and he would grin. How could I ever forget about you? And he'd lean over to kiss her with me still squirming in his arms. All three of us would stand in the entrance to the kitchen for a few more minutes, talking about our day. Then we'd shuffle over the threshold, me with my hand in my mom's or my dad's or both. And in the kitchen, he would show me the correct way to knead and roll and shape dough. I'd watch as he'd reached for more flour, his sleeves pushed up to his elbows, his careful fingers pressing and molding something previously shapeless into something he wanted. My father could make miracles. My father could make anything, except my mother happy. And I suppose I can stop there.
Me, almost as well as you write. Yeah.
So, how do we usually do questions? I just stay up here and...
You just stand there until someone says, I have a question.
I have a question.
Yes.
What were some of the hardships that you encountered, like when writing this novel?
That's a good question. One I haven't been asked before, actually. I don't know. I think in general, for me, the hardest thing about writing is not feeling like garbage when I have to change stuff. Like I think I've gotten better at it, but I think especially when I was first working on it, there was a lot of moments of like, oh my God, this is the worst thing I've ever written. No one's ever gonna want to read this, you know. And it wasn't true, obviously, but like I think a lot of artists probably do that. Like we're pretty hard on ourselves. So that was rough. It was sort of weird trying to find out what I wanted the book to be like. I don't know if that's a hardship necessarily, but it took, obviously, you were there for the revision masterclass, but I talked about that there a lot too. It took many a draft before it became something that, the book was actually about. So yeah, it took a while to figure that out. I think that was another hard part. Yeah, I don't know.
So you write fiction, obviously, but you also write poetry, and I was wondering if there's a relationship between those two practices for you, or if they complement each other, if they conflict with each other.
I definitely think I try to make them complement each other. I would like to say that my style is influenced by my background in poetry. When I was giving this to my agent originally, he said that it had sort of a literary bent to it that like a lot of young adult books don't necessarily have, which I would like to say is a strength. Not that there's anything better or worse about having a literary voice or whatever, but I think that is like a unique thing in the space of young adult fiction. Like not every single book, I think, has that. So I'd like to say that complements it. I think one of the things I'm running into with my second book right now, so I didn't feel it as much with this one. Also, I think partially because as I was writing this was when I was getting into poetry, so those things sort of were happening at the same time. So I feel like I didn't have as much conflict between the two of them. Like they were sort of just weaving together. But like with my second book, one of the struggles has been like perhaps too many metaphors, perhaps not clarifying enough what I mean. So in that way, it can sometimes be a bit of a conflict. But overall, I would like to think that they complement each other.
So I kind of have like two questions. One, like, how long did it take for you to write this? And two, what was like the moment that you like wrote the most? So like in one sitting.
Yeah, so for the timeline, so I wrote the very first draft of this. I wrote about more than half of it in a month because I was doing this thing in Nashville called a novel idea, which is essentially a little fun writing camp you go to every day for a month and you just write and that's all that you do. So I got most of it done then, and then I was sort of piddling with it until, that was in June, until October of that year. So the very first draft of it took about 5 months to be fully finished. Other than that, it's been 7 years, and I finished this completely, not actually last year, in 2021, I think, like the very end of 2021. So I was writing it for about 5 years and messing with it. Probably the most that I've written in one sitting for this book in particular, when I was at that camp, I was just so excited and just had so much energy and joy to be writing a book that I think I wrote probably 10,000 words during one of the days, which is a lot and not a sustainable amount to write. Like I could not do that every day, but I was off school too, it was during the summer, so I just had nothing else to do but work on it. So I got to just sit down and literally do nothing but that all day. And there have been a few other times with other projects where 10,000 is about my limit. I think I actually did 12,000 for my second book, which I'm on deadline for, so I had like a strict, like, you need to get this done. So there were some days then that were very similar. But in general, I don't tend to write that much in one day. Those are outliers, but yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, my brain was sort of mush by the end of the day.
You just sort of touched on this, but I was going to ask about the difference between the process of writing this first book and the process of writing the second one now, because I think a lot of writers will be like, this first book took me 15 years, and then I discovered that I needed to get a second one out within a year.
Yeah. So the differences in the process. Yeah, definitely I got to just fiddle with this by myself without anyone telling me, like, you have to have this due to me or whatever, for probably 4 years. And then after that, I was with an agent, and we didn't have like super strict deadlines. And then the pandemic happened, so of course that also made the deadlines a little bit weird too. So it wasn't until I was writing my second book recently that I really experienced that, like, oh my god, I have to get something out. Even if it's not good, even if it's not what's gonna be the final thing, even if I know I need to work on it, I just have to do it. Which is a very different feeling from being on your own and just being able to like fiddle with something for several years and like it just be a personal project and you don't have people expecting anything of you. So it definitely was different in that way. I think for the faster sort of deadlines, I do this thing. This is the only way I've managed to like write quickly, is I literally can't be thinking about anything other than the book all day. Like if I am going to get something done in a month, 2 months, I cannot be having other things on my brain. And when I was writing this, I got to have lots of other stuff on my brain because I wasn't like being beholden to that. And it's sort of a weird feeling. I feel like it's similar to, you know that thing where you're like in the flow, you're in the zone, that thing that people talk about? Like it's that, but like 24 hours of the day. And also it feels worse because it's not like I'm just doing the thing, it's like I'm thinking through problems all day. And I'm sure that all of my loved ones are very annoyed by it when I'm like that, because I'm literally just like, I'm having this problem and I'm thinking about this thing. Like I'm just talking about it too, like that's all that's on my brain. So yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons to trying to write something fast and on a deadline versus just getting to like do it on your own time. The unfortunate reality of publishing is that they sort of want authors to be on a book a year schedule, and so you sort of have to find ways to cope with that, unless you like obviously have other means and you can be like, hi, can we push it back, please? You know, which happens too. But for me, since I want writing to be my main thing, I'm currently learning how to sort of cope with having that on the brain at all times forever. So, yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Ian's emphatic nodding when you said that you can't do anything else. That was a rounded answer. All right. Oh, here we go.
How did you decide the identities of characters that you wrote, like from like Gail to Nicole to like Gail's parents, all the way down? Not just like gender and sexuality, but like background and career stuff.
Yeah, so I think I tend to draw a lot and quite explicitly from my life. Gail's parents are, in terms of their relationship and his relationship to them, are not similar to my parents at all.
Not at all.
But like, for example, Gail's mom is works at an art school as a piano teacher. And that came from my mom, who worked at an art school for 18 years. Not as a piano teacher though, but as a biology teacher. But she did teach piano for a period. So like, I sort of piece things together from my real life. A lot of the background characters have like traits and things they're interested in, and a lot of their like appearances and stuff are based off of like friends that I have had and people I've known. Yeah, I don't know. I draw a lot from very literal people around me, which sort of, I'm sure for some people, like I do wonder sometimes how much people see themselves in the characters and whether or not they know that they are being the inspiration for that. I hope it's not a weird thing, but.
You haven't had anyone say, "Why did you make me?"
I have had my parents, my parents recently were like, they're gonna think that we are divorced and hate each other. And I'm like, no. Yeah, but I haven't had anyone genuinely be like, now hold on a minute. But we'll see, there's still time. There's other books in the pipeline, so.
That leads me to my second question.
Oh, yes.
I know sort of like how you get your ideas, you know, from like your life experiences, but how do you create a world that you can draw from your life experiences, but still have it not reflect like exactly what you know what I mean? Like how do you
like how do I balance
yeah.
being drawn from my life, but not literally just being an autobiography?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing I think I am figuring out as I work on it. My second book is extremely semi-autobiographical, but then also deeply not, because there's a fantasy element involved. So like, I don't know, I think I tend to balance it out by having things that are drawn explicitly from my life paired with things that I just have decided for one reason or another are traits or things that exist in this world. Like Nicole, I do not have a mentor figure friend in my life. I have had mentor figures in my life, but I didn't, my best friend growing up wasn't someone who was older than me and who, in the book she's trans and she came out before he did, and that sort of inspired him to like think about his gender and stuff. And sort of her inception came from the fact that growing up I had a lot of female friends, and when I was figuring out my gender and stuff, a lot of the trans people who helped me were trans women. And I really liked the idea of a close friendship between a trans boy and a trans girl, and like them, and that shows up a lot in my work. Like in my second book, there is a trans girl and trans boy who are best friends too. And so like there's things like that are somewhat based off of things in my life that either like I value or are like have been important moments to me. But I try to twist them a little bit so it's not quite so much myself. And also because like Gail is, I would say, like me, but I also tried to make him distinctly not my voice. So like a lot of the struggles he has are things that I've experienced or that I have been around other people who have experienced, but they're not one-to-one translations of my life. But yeah, that is a balance that I struggle with and that I'm always trying to figure out how to have that. I sort of just feel it out, I think. Like, does this feel too close? Does this feel too far? Because that's the thing too, is sometimes I'll write something and go, I don't even feel a personal connection to this, so why am I writing it? Like, what is it, why am I interested in writing that, you know? And sometimes the answer reveals itself to me, and sometimes the answer is, well, change it to something I do care about, and then I will have a connection to it. So, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah! Woo! Famous Arthur.
Famous Arthur.
Famous Arthur.
All right. Thank you so much, Gray. Our next visiting writer, our last visiting writer of the season is fiction writer Raul Palma, who's coming on April 13th. And I just want, because Gray didn't mention it, in the back of this book is a little section of acknowledgments, and it does include this little paragraph that says, not that one.
Sorry.
It says, to my Wells friends and my odd even crew, thank you for making my time in college so memorable and weird and fun and worth it. You all mean so much to me, and I can't wait for our next movie night. Ian still doesn't get movie picking privileges that time. And I just, when I read that, I was so glad to see that this space had mattered to Gray, the way we want it to matter to everyone who comes through our program and this institution, and that made me very, very happy. I just wanted to share that out with the larger group, because I think that's really lovely and important, and thank you for sharing that in your book. I was like, can I read it? Whatever, great, put it in the book.
I put
It's
it in
in
the book, you
world.
can read it.
Yeah. The books are for sale here. He'll sign them for you. You can pay me for them, and I promise I'll actually give the money to Gray. One more round of applause for Gray.
Yeah! Yeah! Oh my god. Wow.
I took a photo right before you did. Did you have a smile on your face? I have a mega. Wait, don't
For
touch
graduation,
I want to take a picture of this graduation.
my book, yeah. Y'all want to borrow it, and,
I'm very excited.
when I got my book, I just made a huge stack on my kitchen table. with all of
No,
them.
focus on the fucking books, please.
Yeah.
Bye, Megan.